Again, we're talking about engagement, as we've been talking about, and David talked about, and Bella talked about. So we're also going to talk about the use of technology and student engagement in the classroom. My name is Ellen Pozzi, and I teach school library media in the Department of Educational Leadership and Professional Studies. And this is Michelle Hinkle.
I'm Michelle Hinkle, and I teach in the professional counseling program, which is part of the Department of Special Education and Counseling.
So what we're going to talk about today is using, oops, no. All right, I'm clicking the wrong button here, sorry. There we go. Yeah, I hit the wrong key. We're going to be talking about using online comic strip makers in the classroom. How many of you like to read comics? Yay! How many of you have created comics yourselves? Anybody a comic creator? Oh, yay! Long time ago. Well, if you're like me and can't draw, you tend not to create comics, even though you might appreciate them. These new online comic strip makers allow more creativity without the necessity of being able to draw. They provide you all the elements you need to create a comic strip or even a comic book online. And so this is from one of my students in my class. We were talking about reading and the importance of reading and sustained silent reading and practicing reading for fluency, reading for pleasure. And so one of my students made this strip about planting a seed. So by doing sustained silent reading, or what my kids used to call sit down, shut up, and read. She's nicely done this, that they've planted a seed. They've planted a seed of reading through SSR. So she nicely expressed the main idea. I asked them to, from the readings, express one main idea, and she did this beautifully. So we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits. I'm going to show you a demonstration of how to put this together, and talk a little bit about some of the comments the students have had.
Okay, so I'm going to just talk a little bit about the benefits of engaging students through comic strips. So this is really exploratory. There's not a lot of information out there about this, but we were just able to gather in our own experience working with these comic strips how they might be helpful for students, and particularly with student engagement. So the first point is that it helps students to summarize main points in very concise ways. So there are actually word limits in the bubbles. So one of our goals is to help students to take some of these really large concepts that they're learning and then condense it into something that's meaningful to them and do it in a way that others can understand very easily. So part of that is to make it very concise. So we think it's beneficial in that way. It also helps to illustrate these grand concepts in a very concrete way through the comic strip. Targeting multiple learning styles, so some people learn kinetically. They're learning by movement and actually doing something. So this helps with that. It also helps maybe a visual learner because everything is visual right there. You're taking concepts and making them concrete. This is really unique to our professions particularly, and maybe some of yours, that a lot of our students are in applied disciplines. So that means that they're going to leave and then they're going to use some of the things that they're learning in the classroom with their own clients, in my field, or students in the library field.
Yeah.
So this provides them with an activity that they can do in their learning, and then they turn around and they can do it with their respective, the people that they're going to be working with, students or clients. We think that this is a unique assignment that can reduce the chances of cheating because it's very individualized and it's creative. So people really aren't going to be able to use ideas off of each other. They can do it, they have their own creativity to do it on their own. Creativity is actually one of my interest areas. So this is a great way to engage students in their own creativity. As a professional counselor, I use creativity in my work with clients, and it's actually one of my scholarship areas also. So creativity helps people to gain more insight into themselves and gain more insight into what they're learning, and it sticks. So we're hoping that what they're learning is going to stick with them a little longer. Students are reporting that they're enjoying doing some of this stuff. And a lot of our standards in each of our disciplines talk about how students need to not only learn concepts, but learn how they have their own meaning to the concepts. So this helps people to provide their own insight into what they're learning and then use it in their own individual ways.
And also standards for library school and schools include using creative formats to express ideas. So this is a different kind of format than writing a report or doing a standard kind of even a website. This is different than that. So, all right, I'm going to give you a short demonstration of how to use what we used was Makebelief Comics, and I use this for my students because this was a free application, and I'm going to come back to that page if you don't get it, Sandy. Let's see, is this going to go? Looks like it's working. Okay. And it's really basically got a fairly not very steep learning curve, and like I said, it's free. It's also nice because you can write in this application in English, Spanish, French, German, Italian, Portuguese, and Latin. So you could use this in a Latin class to develop a lesson, which I think is kind of neat because Latin classes, especially in high schools, have the reputation of being a bit dry. So it might be fun to add something here. So basically, you go in here and you can, they have many different figures, so you can choose what type of, sorry, not used to this on my computer, on this computer. You can choose the type of character that you want to use. So I'm going to use this little poodle. You can give them a background. So if I click on backgrounds, I can choose from multiple types of background. I just have to move up a little here. So we can be outside, we can be, I can't see what that is. Is that the class? Oh, that's a house. So let's put my little poodle in a house, my little poodle girl. And then I can add speech bubbles. So these are all classic elements of graphic, of cartoons. If you study cartoons, the speech bubble, the background, you can even do panel prompts, which give you, connect the panels from one day to the next. You can do thought balloons, you can do talk balloons. So here's where you enter a talk balloon, and then you click in here to put in whatever you want to have them say. You can move things around, you can scale them, you can bring them front and back, flip them, and delete, or you can just start over again. You can give it background color. Panel choices, you can do 2, 3, or 4 panels. We found sometimes we wanted to, the example that I showed you, my student wanted to extend it, so she did 2 panels together. And then you can just have the students email you the link. And the link persists, and you can go in and see it. They can print it out. If you're in a face-to-face classroom, you could have them do it and bring it in and share it with other students. You could have sort of, set them up around the classroom and have everybody go around and see them. Or in my case, I did this on a discussion board, and I had each student share the link, and then everybody could go in and see the link. The reason why these are difficult to cheat with is because there's really no, in this particular case, there's no hit, you can't just go in and find these comics. You have to have the direct link. So they could probably get one from a couple years if you do it over years, but it's just a more individual type of assignment. So you can see that you really wouldn't need to give, especially a student who is, I'm a Mac user, so I have trouble with this. I want to get back to my PowerPoint. There it is. Okay. Sorry. Oh. Okay. So there's some other types of comic creators that you can make also. Witty comics, Read, Write, Think. There's an iTunes, an Apple application for a comic book. And Powtoons, you can actually do a comic, put together a comic video. So more like what's the word I'm looking for? Comics, animated video. Thank you.
So
Thank you. So Witty Comics gives you a little bit more of a, did you get it, Sandy? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, I'll come back to that in a minute. Why don't you go ahead and, but those are some other ones.
Yeah,
Having
so what
trouble
I'll
with
do
them.
now is share with you some ideas on how we've used some of the comic strips in our classrooms and our teaching. So Ellen already talked to you a little bit about how she gives a prompt to her students to pull one main concept of what they've learned through their reading and illustrate it through a comic strip. This is a different idea that I use. I teach a counseling theories course frequently, and when I teach the class, at the end of the class, they have learned roughly 13 to 14 different theorists. We have a new theory every week. It's just a survey class. So they have their minds filled with all these philosophers and different counseling theories on how they could guide their work with potential clients and students. So one of the theorists that we study is Insoo Kim Berg. So what I do at the end of the class, when maybe our last day or in preparation for the last day, is I give the students a slide, a cartoon for each theorist, and then I give them situations that so like someone might present to counseling with, and then I say, what would Insoo Kim Berg say? So then it helps them to kind of rifle through their mind to see, well, what theory do we associate this person with? So it's solution-focused counseling, and then what would she say about this particular situation? And then it has them concisely type out, or if I do it in class, write out with their groups what she would say to this situation. Then we share them, and then we come up with different ideas, and all the groups then share. So it's one idea of many. So another idea that I came up with is, so this is April, and April's a really exciting month to be a counselor like myself because it's Counseling Awareness Month. So, I came up with a prompt to illustrate in a comic some advocacy work for counseling. So one of the pushes during Counseling Awareness Month is to tell people, well, what is counseling? What's the difference between counseling and social work? What's the difference between counseling and psychology? And so we have our little frog in the beginning feeling kind of down about things, and so he's wondering what he should do, and that someone recommended counseling, but he doesn't know what it is. So the counseling fairy comes and then gives different points about counseling throughout their conversation. So I can't even read that personally. But she comes down and she tells them about how counselors all have an accredited degree in counseling or a doctoral degree in counseling, either a master's or doctoral degree, and they're all licensed. And then, so she talks about their education. Then she talks a little bit about their philosophy, that they're all developmental, come from a strength-based approach, and focus on wellness, more so than focusing on the label of diagnosis. And then counselors are advocates for social justice, and we like to see things systemically and wonder how does society influence a person, and how does that stifle their ability to be genuine, which is important in counseling, to be genuine. So he's learning a little bit more about counseling, and then at the end he feels like he knows a little bit more about it and he's ready to make a phone call. So he has an umbrella because he already feels like he's starting to cope better. So this is just a way to put out some key points that sometimes students struggle with talking about with other people. This is a way to just make it more concrete, more direct, and then they can leave and then tell people more easily what it is counselors do and who counselors are.
So what are some ways that you think you could incorporate comic strips if you're a faculty member, or if you're a student, how would you like to see them incorporated in a class? What would you like to do with comic strips? This is time for you to brainstorm a little bit.
Yeah, any ideas specific to your disciplines? Maybe not. Yeah.
Oh,
Tell us about it.
Okay, good. We'll help you
have an
create one for
idea.
the next meeting. David?
I'm thinking about some sort of pre-writing, prior to writing something, using as an outline technique
Yeah.
to get some thoughts out.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
like mapping out something. That's great.
It might be a cute way to, like, begin, we run these workshops like blended learning boot camp and applying quality matters rubric, and people come in not quite knowing what to expect, so it's sort of like we can get out, have them develop a little comic strip about what their expectations are.
Ah, very good.
That's a
Very
great
good.
idea, yeah.
I think I saw a hand in the back
Yes,
there.
and,
Yeah.
opposed to just like doing a regular assignment or a project, this will be a little like easier for students. I guess they'll be like happier to do this and work with the computer and try out all the different things that you can play with instead of just like sitting and reading a textbook and having to analyze some information and writing a summary.
Yeah.
So it would be more engaging for you to do as a student. Excellent.
Any other ideas? These are great. Thanks.
Yeah, we have actually some feedback from students that actually supports what the gentleman in the back said. So this was from some unofficial feedback from my students that did it. Glad to do something creative with tech. Loved this. I was so glad to hear that. And again, because my students are going out and applying it, they're talking about how they want to use it with their own students. They were happy with the finished product. One person had already actually used this in their own classes to talk about cyberbullying, which was really perfect. To use technology to talk about technology, cyberbullying was really good. And they were engaged because it allowed them to be creative, as Michelle said. Other students found the activity fun. One of them said, I think my own children will like this. It'd be an activity that my children just enjoy doing, not even pedagogically, but just to enjoy and be creative. I think it gives you a little bit, if you start out with something like this, that you don't have to worry about your drawing. You can be more expressive. I would always have been afraid to do something like this because my drawing, I can't even draw stick figures, so they come out bad. One person did say they didn't find the program very user-friendly, confusing to navigate and edit at first, and I gave them, because I wanted them to play with the technology, I gave them no instructions. So, some of them found it difficult. I found it pretty easy to navigate, so it depends on your comfort level with technology, I think. And language arts teachers could use this to teach about sequence of events. Great assignment to foster kids' creativity and imagination. And so basically the overall response from my students who used this in a class of mine was very positive, and they were engaged, as you said, and they were able to create what they created. I think I needed to, some of them did very well, like the first example. I need to go back and have them work a little bit on being a little clearer with some of what they created, but it was a great way to add to a discussion. We've been typing away at our discussion boards all semester, so it was a nice change up and to do something different. So,
I saw a great graphic novel from Kids at School 7 starring a guy named Eugene who was doing cyberbullying, who was doing bullying, and that contributed to the story. It was pretty neat.
Cool. Yeah, the app that the one app on iTunes, if I can get into it, actually does allow you to do, I think it's like $2.99, and it allows you to do a whole comic book rather than just a strip. So if you did want the students to, I don't know why I'm so ham-handed with this. But anyway, if you wanted the students to do a whole comic book, there's an app for that to do it on your iPads. So it's another way to bring the iPads, which we've already tried bringing into the schools, to bring those in also. So I think it's great. And Powtoons, we had seen one of our faculty members produced a Powtoon for us to look at and to talk about his research. It was a great way to talk about his research. So it's really an engaging kind of thing. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so.
And I think we are out of time.
We have about 15 minutes, so any questions for David or Ellen and Michelle?
I actually have a question for you, David. It seemed like with the skills that you were trying to develop through gamification, it's a little like, how might it be alike or differ with competency-based education?
I think it's both really similar and a little different.
Yeah.
The difference, I'd say, is starting with the end product of having these specific people that you're emulating or asking students to analyze the skills they have and then emulate. But there are lots of similarities in the sense that you're trying to move someone towards a specific goal. So I think it's very interesting to see how this will unfold. I don't think from the kids' perspective that there's any hesitancy in participating in what they're being asked to do. I do think from the adult perspective it's a shift because it's different, but you know, that's common.
Do they feel like they're turning into a Boy Scout leader, like, you know, getting badges for?
I mean, that's kind of what we were alluding to when we thought that engagement might flatten over time, is that, you know, unfortunately, most things that are really cool that get adopted by a school, the school has a tendency to make it not as cool. So that's one of the problems, and that we're trying to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
So I think they'll have to switch it up, say, next year, if the kids are the same kids.
Yeah.
If it's a rotating group, then there could be some parallel excitement.
Yeah.
David, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just thinking about David with the gamification. It just brought me back to like elementary school where I know when I was in class and I did something well, I was rewarded with a star. And it's like pretty nice to see that it's going from, like you said, concept where you're just like learning something in class to something that's more like of a career development. Now where you're taking like an aptitude test or anything like that, but you're like throughout your education, you know, you're going towards things that you like. Not just getting to college and going, hey, I'm gonna pick a major now. You know, I have no idea. You'll get your badges towards something that you're interested in, like at an early age.
That's
Maybe it hones your interests too.
I was wondering, David, if you've been aware of the makerspace movement in libraries and how this compares with that, or if you've connected it with the library at all? Or
I have not.
You have not, okay. Because I was out, actually, the Chicago Public Library has a huge, I mean, like this room size makerspace for teens, and they do things like, actually, the students have created albums. They have to learn how to use the GarageBand. So they earn badges to use so the same kind of thing where they have to learn earn the badges in order to use the technology, and then they can create, and also movies and stuff. But it's cool.
I think that Makerspace is more aligned with this, with creating, using creativity to engage and to brainstorm, as opposed to developing skills along the way that lead to a final goal. You know.
Although I saw in that,
overlap in the creative aspects.
Creative, yeah. I saw in that makerspace that they were actually learning skills that they could go out and use in turn, like, you know, he said newsmaker, making broadcasts. Well, these guys were actually making albums that are out there, like other people knew these kids from the music and video albums that they music that they had out there that they had made with GarageBand. So, you know, it's also skills based, and they have places where they're, you know, playing with technology and learning how to put together technology and all kinds of things, and books, lots and lots of books. So yeah, their circulation went up like 400% when they opened the makerspace. So it's interesting to see if the libraries eventually can connect with what you're doing, because I think it would be a great hybrid, you know, synchronicity.
Yeah, we've only really just begun to scratch the surface, and believe it or not, the project only began, gosh, I think January.
Wow. Wow.
Like, I can't believe I'm saying that, because it was so much in so little time.
So it's cool.
Any other questions?
Not a question, but just a comment. When you were asking about how to use the comic strips into my teaching, I was thinking about, and I still have to think about this, but I'm really going to be thinking hard as to how to use comic strips into the classes that I teach, which I mostly teach data analysis and statistics, which, as you were saying, like Latin, they're kind of known to be dry, more dry than any other elective classes. But I think there's definitely a way to incorporate this and maybe bring some in-class activity. I just have to think hard as to how maybe there might be a way to make some of these assignments or exercises more interactive and more fun.
Yes.
So
I was thinking about that too. I teach a counseling assessment course, which is
statistics in the beginning. The first half of it's statistics, and then the last half is using assessments. And I was thinking to use this in a way where the students have to connect why they're learning statistics. So a lot of them think, well, I'm never going to do research, and I'm not going to, some of the tests we can't do in the state of New Jersey as counselors. So why they still have to learn it? So I was trying to think of the same thing in those more dry classes.
It's not really going to be really hard, and I think there's definitely a way to do this. And going back to what you said, Michelle, about theory, I also teach sociological theory, and I can see, using some of these comic strips just to ask the question, what would Weber say about something, this topic after introducing the theory? And sometimes students have a tendency, and we all do that, not only students, when you're just talking about a certain topic, it's just a lot of information, and I think these comic strips, as you both mentioned, make it more concise. You can summarize it better, and students hopefully can do the same.
You have to really pull out that main
Absolutely.
idea, yeah.
And you mentioned that there's like a word limit too, I believe, in those.
Yeah.
So that would be useful.
Yeah, you ran up against the word limit with your,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hard.
Yes.
It's hard to stay within that word limit.
There's
Yeah, that's
also
a great
a lot
point.
of great infographic programs out there now where you can create your own infographics, which are really kind of a neat way to conceptually show numbers. It's an old thing made new again, the infographics, where you can use, just put the numbers in more fun ways and more visual ways. But that's great. Anything else?
Any other questions?
Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.